Yay! So, hi everybody. I'm Bondilyn Jolly, and I'm the founder and CEO of eMerge. And I am so excited to be kicking off this three-part webinar series with the fabulous Valerie Garcia. And she is joining us from a cold and snowy Toronto this morning, or I guess it's almost afternoon for you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. Thanks for
Well,
having me.
I'm
This is
sure
fun.
this is going to be awesome. And Valerie, I'm sure many of our attendees are familiar with you, but Valerie is a very sought after international speaker and business consultant in the real estate space. And we're just really thrilled to have you with us today because we've had so many of our clients, talking to us about their business planning and their strategies and their lead conversion strategies and for 2018. And it's that end of the year where everybody's looking back over the previous year, making their plans for the new year. And so this could not be a better time for us to be doing this webinar together because we've had so much interest. All of you that are watching, we are going to cover material fast and furious today as much as we possibly can. You have a chat that is in the webinar, so feel free if you have questions, if you want us to stop and dig deeper into a particular topic. We're really going to try to honor all of your requests and all of the questions that you have. We will do some Q&A at the end of the session as well, where we'll just be 100% focused on answering your questions. But please feel free to submit them throughout the entire webinar, and we will be keeping track of them and trying to address them as we go along. And Valerie, so you sent me this fabulous workbook that we're actually going to make available for download for everybody after the webinar. And I love that it starts with this quote from one of our four-star generals, George Patton. And I thought it was just a great way to kick this off because, like I said, so many of our people are like, oh my God, I've got to get my business planning in place for 2018. I know where my weaknesses are from 2017. I know what I need to be doing, and I just need to take that time and implement it. And I just thought this was such a great quote that a good plan implemented today is better than a perfect plan implemented tomorrow. And so,
Right.
Let's go ahead and dig in. So what exactly does that mean? We don't have to have a perfect business plan in place for 2018?
Exactly. And, I think this is the thing that holds so many of us back is we don't know exactly what a business plan should look like for a realtor or where to get started or how exactly, what form or template or whatever we should be using. And so because it doesn't all look perfect, we don't take the time to plan. And so many realtors that I talk to don't have a business plan of any sort where they sit down and identify what their year is going to look like. And quite honestly, when we think about business planning, it's intimidating. We think it's this giant, scary thing, but really all business planning is learning to balance your time and your money. And yes, that's a little bit scary still, but it simplifies it. And I think that's what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through what are the secrets to having a good business plan. And then for everybody that registered, you're right, we're going to send them a really great workbook that's going to help them walk through every one of these steps.
Well, that sounds great. Melissa, if you could hit the next slide for us, please. So I really like in your workbook, you kind of start with this question. And I think this is really important because everyone really defines success very differently.
Absolutely. And I think the industry tries to define success for us. It tells us that we have to be a number one agent in our market or that we have to sell a certain number of transactions, et cetera. But the reality is that we get to define what success looks like for us. We get to sit down when we do our business plan and decide, does success mean that, we're going to work X number of days and we're going to take X number of days off? Or does success mean that we're going to be able to spend more time with our family or that we're going to be able to go on that vacation? We really should, at the beginning of a business plan, sit down and talk about what does success look like for us and what does that mean and how do we define it? Because if we don't know what that looks like, we're going to get to the end of the year and we're not going to have any goalposts or any benchmarks to sort of measure our success against.
And I like how you say, in thinking about a business plan and in thinking about success, many times people are just focused on the business side of all of that. And it's true. It's really about, that personal and professional work-life balance. And when I'm looking at, my business planning, for the coming year, I'm always like, okay, if I'm committing to these different business initiatives, how does that impact me on a personal side? And am I willing to make those personal sacrifices in order to manifest this business opportunity. And I think that's really important that people think about the work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you'll find as we go through here, and we're going to talk about goal setting at a certain point, and it's so important to set goals that are both personal and professional. A good business plan is going to address both sides of that, because if we only talk about what we're going to do in our business, we're going to leave out that other whole part of our lives, which is living our lives, right? When we're not working. So it's so important that we talk about both.
I want to just stop for 1 minute and stop the conversation. We've had a few people that are commenting in. They're having some problems with audio. And so I know one thing, Google Chrome is a very good interface to use, as well as Firefox. I think people that may be on Safari may be having some audio problems. So if possible, if you can switch to Chrome or Firefox, you should have, somebody saying Safari is not working for them. So that could be a problem for people with audio problems. But please note that we are creating a recording of this webinar. So if you're having trouble with the audio, you can definitely pick up the recording after the fact and go back and revisit the conversation. So Google Chrome or Firefox. No Safari, everyone. Okay. We can continue on.
So the slide that we're looking at right now really kind of ties into that whole defining your success. So I love this little graphic. For those who recognize it, obviously it's from Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And that book really sort of changed the way that I looked at marketing and the way that I looked at running my business. Yes, right? Start with why, but also that new work. So good. The whole idea behind the graphic that you're seeing on the screen is that we mostly start, and I hear this all the time when we start business planning. People say to me, what should I be doing? What should I be spending my time on? What should I be spending my money on? What do I need to create? What sites should I be on for social media? And then their next questions are generally, how am I going to see success happen? Or how often do I need to contact my clients or my sphere? And how much is it going to cost? But very rarely do we work our way all the way to the inside of the circle. And so Simon says, start with the inside of the circle. Start with why. Why am I doing this? Why do I want to reach out to my people? Why, when I message them, do I want them to pay attention? Why am I getting out of bed in the morning? What is my passion? And if we start there, the how and the what really starts to make sense. And so it's great for us to realize if we start in the middle and work our way out, a lot of those questions are going to become a little more simple because we're going to hold them under the microscope or the magnifying glass of our why.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. So we're a huge fan of Simon, and for all of you that are watching any of his books, like I've got Find Your Why, Leaders Eat Last. I mean, you cannot go wrong. We highly recommend any of his books. And one of the things I love about working through his books too, Valerie, is that, sometimes a lot of these business strategy books or business planning books can be very laborious and overwhelming when people are reading them. And I think Simon is somebody that's really able to create a message that is easy to digest and to understand and also to implement. And I think that's important too when we're looking at our 2018 business planning. When we're looking at what we're going to implement, what can we implement immediately and start recognizing return on immediately versus, what are our longer term strategies? And I'd like to talk about that a little bit because for us, we work in, lead, follow-up, nurturing, conversion, and there's always, that instant gratification, but then we also have to work with our clients to understand how to put long-term lead nurture strategies into place. And so let's talk a little bit about when we're creating our 2018 business plan, what is that balance between instant gratification, meeting immediate needs, and recognizing ROI versus a longer term strategy over the course of the year?
So I generally recommend that if you're going to have some goals, that you start creating strategies around them that are going to be small and easy to do. And there's also going to be some strategies around them that are going to take longer and be more difficult. We tend to, when we take on a new project or set a goal, we look at the big, giant steps that we're going to have to take, and it seems a little overwhelming. And so I tend to, when I'm looking at a business plan or setting goals, break it down into weekly or daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. What are things that I'm going to do daily to achieve this goal? And maybe those are just little tiny steps, little things that I'm going to do on a daily basis. And then what am I going to do weekly? So if we're taking things like, I want to convert more of my leads into relationships and then turn those into business, which is a really common goal that a lot of people have is, I've got this great database, I have all these leads coming in, but I'm not converting them into business. How do I do that? Great. So what are we going to do on a weekly, a daily basis that's going to help us start? Well, on a daily basis, we're going to return calls a little more quickly, and we're going to get those people into our database and get them started on a process where they start to receive information that's valuable to them. And then maybe weekly, we're going to reach out to them with a bigger piece of data or a piece of information that's specific to the type of lead that they are. And then monthly, maybe that's when we do the newsletters and we reach out to them differently, or we call on a regular basis. And then quarterly, maybe that's something where we deliver something to them that's even more substantial. But the reality is that a lot of us, we look at those people in our database and we say, oh, I've got to make calls, and that seems huge and overwhelming. And because there's so many people in my database, there's no way I could call 100 people. And so we don't do anything. And so it's really taking that big goal and saying, what can I do today? Even if it's really small, that's going to get me closer to that goal, as opposed to what do I have to do this entire year?
I actually attended a lecture this weekend, and it was interesting because I'm a distance runner, and the lecturer was also a runner. And he told this story about, going out and putting himself into a 10-mile run experience. And he was used to running, maybe 1.5 miles up to 3 miles. And he had this one Saturday and he had a big chunk of time. And he said, I'm going to go out and I'm challenging myself to run 10 miles. And he said, every step that he took, it seemed so daunting and overwhelming when he first started. And it was just every step and every step. And as he continued each step and as each mile began to tick off, it was an affirmation to him. And it validated him, and he kept going and he kept going, and it was, step by step by step. And I think that's the same thing you're saying is when we create those business plans and these goals for ourselves, it can seem very overwhelming and daunting. And how am I going to get to that end goal? And I love what you're saying. It's just these bite-sized chunks. What do I need to do today to get myself one step closer to that? What do I need to do this week to get myself one step closer? Right. So I love that analogy. So I think it's interesting. You talked about people's databases and there's a study that is actually going to be coming out very soon, and it was done through Prem Luthra and the Elm Street Technology Group. And one of his consultants was sharing some of that information online, and they'd actually surveyed about 100,000 agents and brokers in North America. And one thing that they determined was that 81% of real estate transactions are procured via an agent's sphere of influence.
Wow.
81%. And I'm like, I think that's even higher than some of the numbers that we've seen in the past. And I was really blown away. And because he was saying, your sphere of influence is literally a pot of gold.
Yeah. Yeah. And as big as that number is, it doesn't really surprise me. I'm pretty famous for saying all the time that agents need to spend more time loving the ones they're with. We spend so much energy trying to procure more leads, right? Buy, trade, sell, whatever it is, get me more people into my pipeline and more people into my database. But the reality is that we don't spend a lot of energy on the ones that are already there. And, the ones that already know us and like us and trust us, or that they've used us in the past, or that they're friends of friends. It doesn't surprise me that those people would be a great source of business if we just reached out. I heard a quote the other day, if you reach out to 10, you're going to get more. I'm going to butcher this, but you'll get better results if you reach out to 10 people 10 times than 100 people once. And I thought, gosh, if we reached out to our top 10 people in our database that know, like, and trust us, that we've worked with, and say to them, what can we do to help you so that when you're talking to people and the topic of real estate comes up, that, my name would come to mind, and what kinds of content could I provide you that would help you have those conversations? And how can I be be a great resource to you in what you do. And if we were to reach out to those 10 people 10 times over the course of a year, we would get more business from those 10 people than if we randomly took 100 people out of our database and just reached out to them once and said, hey, I'm never too busy for your referrals. The reality is we do have to do a better job at loving the ones we're with. And part of business planning is making sure that if your business plan at all involves growing your business, which most of them do, converting more of your leads, making sure that you make more money next year than you did this year. Inevitably, the key to every one of those goals is people. And so it's a matter of figuring out, how do I talk to more people, and what people are those, and what do I say to them? And that's really the key to a really great business plan, is how do I talk to more people? What do I say? And how do I make sure that what I say is valuable?
Right. And I know that at our next webinar, we're actually going to be digging into the types of content and communication for the different kinds of lead opportunities we have. So I know we're going to dig in quite a bit. But while we're on this topic, Melissa, I'm going to ask you to jump ahead, skip the next slide and go to the slide after, please. And click it one more time to finish loading it. There we go. So this is actually, I compiled this. This is from some data from Realtor.com, the Wave Group, RS Media. And I thought this was really interesting because you're talking about, touching, 10 people 10 times, and how that's so much more valuable than, just constantly trying to, procure new leads. And so many of the times when our clients come to us, they're frustrated. They might be, spending money to procure leads from Realtor or from Zillow or different third-party sources. And they're saying, oh, these aren't quality leads. These aren't quality leads. Right. And so when we really start digging in and say, okay, well, how are you communicating with, those leads and these different opportunities? And they'll say, oh, well, the lead came in, I called them, I left a message, I didn't hear back, I sent them a text or I sent them an email, and, and nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at this data, I thought it was really interesting that like 80% of, transactional sales are coming somewhere between the 5th and 12th touch.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people never really go that deep, In the real estate sector, we have a tendency to look for that instant gratification, those leads that, raise their hand and convert very quickly. But, statistically, that's, somewhere around 1% to 2%. Right. And the average lead to conversion time is actually 13 months. And there's also establishing that trust. So when we talk about our sphere of influence, I think one thing we forget in real estate too is how emotional buying and selling a home is. Yes. My husband and I, a few years ago, we made the decision to move from New Orleans to Los Angeles. It was very emotional for us in a lot of ways, leaving behind friends and family. We had a beautiful home that we had, gone through Hurricane Katrina with, had put a ton of our own blood, sweat, and tears into rebuilding that home. And so when it came time for us to list that home and leave that home and move to Los Angeles, it was a very, very emotional process. And I think, for agents who are just every day, looking at it from a business standpoint, you're not always respecting that emotional standpoint that your clients are experiencing, and really being respectful of that and giving them the time and the nurturing and the quality of communication and trust building that they need.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think it's totally normal and natural for us in this industry to look at people as leads. But I can't stress enough how important it is to start looking at leads as people and be able to say, really all a lead is a person who's put up their hand and said, I have a question. And when you walk into a store and somebody says, can I help you? 99% of the time you're going to say, no, I'm just looking. Even if you have a question, you're going to suss out the situation, and you're going to develop a little bit of trust, and you're going to wait until you've kind of looked around, and then you're going to put your hand up and say to a salesperson, I have a question. Can you tell me where this is? And that's the first step. And sometimes we get leads that are way out in the very beginning of the process where they're saying, I just have a really basic question. And we bombard them with, can we get married tomorrow and start having kids? And it's, like you are just on the very first minute of the first date. And, and I think coming back to business planning, that it's so important that we not only think of what's on the screen right now, what we're looking at, but making sure that we're planning for the long term in our systems and in our business, and that we're saying, look, I'm going to have people that come in every single part of the lead cycle, and I need to be able to structure my business so that my daily tasks include reaching out to the people that are putting up their hand right now. But sometimes my daily and weekly and monthly tasks also mean that I'm on that fifth, sixth, eighth, 10th touch for somebody who's just about ready to say, okay, I need help. And we don't think about those people as much. We don't love the ones that we're with as much. We are constantly in search of that hot new lead that came in right now because it's exciting and they're new and maybe they want to buy right now. But chances are, we know statistically that's not going to happen, right? Google and Zillow both say that people statistically are looking online 90 days before they actually contact an agent and want to ask that question. So some of those leads are just brand new baby buyers and sellers, and we have to be patient. And we have to also make sure we structure our business to allow us to nurture those people through every step of the way.
So do you have any recommendations in terms of like how I have sat and I have watched some brokers and agents, speak in the past where they say, I sit down and I block out an hour every single morning and I'm taking this very, very specific action. And then I have another hour block of time where I'm taking this very specific action. And it's kind of interesting because they'll break up their day so that there's a time where I'm reaching out to all of my new leads, my immediate opportunities. I'm nurturing past leads. I'm writing handwritten notes. I'm answering emails. Is that in your business coaching, is that something that you work with, clients to kind of have such a structured approach, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think time blocking is one of the greatest things on the planet. And I think that in our business, it can be really hard to have an ideal day and time block out every day because the phone rings and somebody wants to see a property or something comes up and we have to run, or we have appointments back to back and then one runs late. So they all run late. It can be really difficult to structure your time that specifically. But what I recommend and what you'll see in this workbook when our audience downloads it is that the goal is to have the idea of what you would do on an ideal day. So, how much time are you going to allot for prospecting, for reaching out to the people, I call those income producing activities, your IPAs. How much time are you going to allocate per day in an ideal day for income producing activities, but also how much are you going to allot for relationship building activities? And that's staying in touch with those people and touch points and reaching out just to say, hey, I was thinking about you. We haven't talked in a little while. You were, a fantastic client to work with. Do you know anybody that I could also help? How's it going? Whatever, building relationships. But then we also have admin, and we also have, admin activities. They're never going to go away. We still always have to do the things like the paperwork and the taxes, et cetera. And then we also have professional development, which sometimes takes the back burner, but is also so important. Things like taking time to be on this webinar today and, get ideas sparked. Those are really the key elements of every day, those four pieces. And even if you can't block out time every day, let's say you wake up one day and you think, okay, I've really gotten off track. I've had a couple of pajama days. I've had a couple of crazy client days, and I need to look back and go, where should I be? That's when you pull out your ideal day sort of template and go, great, so I'm going to start with some prospecting. And this is what that prospecting looks like because I set this goal at the beginning of the year. So I know these are the little things that I need to do to get there today. I also kind of know now to get back on track for my weeklies and my monthly and my quarterly activities. Where am I out of touch there? If you can use that to reorient yourself after you've had a couple of crazy days or you've had vacation, that's the hardest thing I think in our business, especially when it comes to business planning, is that no day looks the same all the time, but also a couple of crazy days or a couple of days off can really throw us off track. And we can get to the point where it's like, maybe I just won't leave the house today. Right. And that's a problem because in this business, if we don't work, we don't eat. So, we have to use those templates to keep us on track when we get off track, not necessarily to keep us on this really rigid schedule every single day that we don't deviate from. Right. And so that's really what I look at as time blocking. So it's finding ways to fit in the four main elements of what it is that we do. We work with people. We prospect for new business. We keep in touch with the people in the past in terms of relationships. We have admin and we have personal development.
That's fantastic. And actually, while you were talking, Keith Rushman sent us a message, and he's like, oh, so very true. Being a newer agent, I find myself getting caught up in wanting instant gratification and too focused on the paycheck. And so let's talk about, business planning. And it's interesting because in that study I referenced from Elm Street Technology, they actually are citing, when you have a sphere of influence, but you're a newer agent and maybe your sphere is much smaller than somebody who's more established in the business, it can be really, challenging to create a profitable livelihood inside real estate. And I really love that, you say that, we have these different elements that we have to put time and attention to. And Keith, I know we hear it all the time that, hey, like I need that instant gratification. I need I need that new hot lead. And I keep not paying attention to that pot of gold that is my increasingly, growing sphere of influence.
Yeah. And I think something that would be really interesting, Keith, for you or for anybody else listening is look up the Eisenhower chart. So the Eisenhower chart is just a really simple chart. Basically, it looks like this. And on one side, you have what's urgent and important. And on the bottom, you have what's urgent but not important. And over here, you have what's important. And I can't remember exactly how it is, but it basically helps you prioritize what you should be doing right now. Right?
Can you see that? Can you see? I'm like, wait, I know I was just looking at one of these charts yesterday. And
I love it.
But it's the, where is it? Where am I? I'm reversed here, but it's the quadrant.
Yep.
And you can create that for anything.
Exactly. And basically the problem is we focus on things that are urgent because there's a deadline. It has to happen right now. We see instant gratification. That's not necessarily important. And sometimes the important stuff is super boring. And so it's important that we prioritize right now in the middle of the line, right? Not always focus on one quadrant. We need to look at prioritizing the stuff on our to-do list.
Right. And it goes back to finding your why, right?
Yeah. So I love that chart because we do sometimes find that we focus on the stuff that's super important or super shiny. And really, if we could focus on the stuff that's going to give us long-term gain, but is important, but also not saying, hey, don't do the stuff that you love that's actually fun. So if you love prospecting a certain way and you're not seeing instant gratification, still do the stuff that you love, but also make time for the stuff that you know is long-term gain. And so that part of setting goals is prioritizing what you're going to do to get there.
Yeah. And, I think it goes back to, earlier you were saying, I need to communicate on all these different social channels and I need to be doing all of these different things. But, we always say to our clients, where do you enjoy prospecting and what social channels do you enjoy or what community outlets do you have? Some people are really involved with their chambers of commerce or their Rotaries or different civic opportunities. And we always look at all of those, your church, all of these are really great opportunities for prospecting and prospecting in different ways.
Exactly. I mean, prospecting doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be talking to people that you don't know or you don't like. It's talking to people that you know and that you like about stuff that you're passionate about.
That's true. And, it's interesting. There's this one, a broker that I've worked with for many, many years. He's based up in Indiana and it's Jimmy Doolin and with Remax. If any of you know him, Jimmy's a great, great guy. And he has a partner, Jim, that's his partner. And I loved their Facebook strategy. Both partners were big Facebook guys and they did a lot of agent recruitment. On Facebook, just engaging and starting conversations with prospects. And Jimmy is just this amazing, amazing chef. And so that was he would always use to start conversations and continue conversations. We all can relate and connect over food. And then his partner, Jim, was just loved to rant about politics and always kind of, he had a completely different audience of prospects that were engaging or arguing or debating with him on social media. And Jimmy's over here, just charming people with the amazing food and all of those kinds of things. But I always just loved that because they just took things that were of personal interest to them that they were passionate about and used it to start conversations in channels that were of interest to them.
Yeah.
And they, very successful. I mean, those guys run a huge, office and they've got a great agent group that really fits, the culture of the organization as well.
I think that's where it comes back to both professional and personal goals, because you want to be able to have room in your life and your business for stuff that you're passionate about, because that then comes out in everything that you do. People know me that I love to go to my farmer's market on the weekends in the summertime because I talk about it constantly. And when I meet people, they say, "Oh, how's the farmer's market? Have you been?" And I know we're wandering kind of back into content right now, but I also want to structure my day and my business plan so that I have the time to go to the farmer's market and to do that thing, because that shines through. And so I think, coming back to scheduling our days and setting our goals, it's so important to have both.
Yeah. And, we've had a lot of our clients will come to us and they'll say, well, this is who I am as a professional. This is who I am as a person. And I'm like, you're ultimately one and the same. And I think with social media and just this constant, ability for interaction with people, for me, I really am a balance. If you connect with me on any of my social channels, you see me as the business person, you see me as the personal person I am. And I think that really gives people a really good insight into who I am in every facet of my life. Mm-hmm. And I think that, that's important, with an agent too, being relatable, and, not being afraid to share, who you are, because that really builds trust and comfort with people.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. So I would love, while we're continuing the conversation, I would love for some of our attendees to start typing into the chat. Tell us, what are some of your, maybe some challenges that you've had in 2017? Maybe that you had some goals that you were trying to reach, you weren't able to reach them. Go ahead, and maybe if anybody wants to share that with us. And then I'd also, Valerie and I would love to see, what are some of your goals for 2018? So, either, and it can be personal, it can be professional, because like we're talking, it's really going to come down to a mix of the two and how you create balance with that.
I think in terms of reaching out to your leads, it's making sure that you're reaching out with really good quality content, and that's more important than frequency. I think the quality of what you're saying and the value that you're offering. But I think the most important thing about reaching out to your people is consistency. You could reach out once a month if you were really consistent about it and did it in the same tonality and the same, earnestness at the same time with the same type of content. So people started to understand this is who you are and this is what to expect. So I think that's really important. Consistency and also quality of content is more important than frequency. And there's no right answer. Unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand for how often you should reach out to your leads. Everyone's going to have different needs. But I do think that one thing you should do on a regular basis is reach out to your people that are kind of in that, especially in that bucket of, these are people that I've worked with in the past, and say, am I meeting your needs with content? Am I reaching out to you with the right thing? Are you reading the stuff that I'm sending? And if not, is there something that I could send that's more valuable to you? We forget the value of just asking that simple question for feedback. And you'd be amazed at how often people will come back and say, well, actually, I'd like more of this, or I really like that. We don't sometimes take the time to ask our people that, and a great place to start.
I'm going to add one more question to ask people. How would you like to be communicated with? So some people love email, some people love text messaging, some people actually want you to pick up the phone and call them, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really important, to pay attention to as well, because if I'm trying to communicate with people, via email and I'm not getting the response, but yet if I have people that I communicate with, I know if I text them, they'll text me right back. But if I send them an email, I'll be waiting 2 days for the same response.
Yeah. Yeah. So Justin also asked a question, in a market that's super busy. So like stuff has to be seen today or we're going to miss out on it. Do you suggest scheduling your day with gaps for immediate showings? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the beauty of scheduling your day, is that you can adjust and accommodate your day for whatever market you're in. You may be in a situation where it's really quiet in December and your market isn't like that. And so you have the ability to sit down and block off bigger chunks of time for personal one-on-one calls, to reaching out to your sphere, et cetera. But you may be in a market where that's just not a possibility right now. And so, yeah, you absolutely adjust for sure.
And we've got another question here from Victor. How do you suggest balancing the communication from broker to consumer with agent to consumer?
Yeah, that is a age-old question. Look, I think this is my opinion. I'm going to go with my opinion on this. Broker to consumer is talking about the value of the industry and the brand and the service that's going to be provided. And the agent to consumer is about the individual market and what the individual person's experience is. That's my opinion. I think the role of the broker when messaging consumers is, this is the value of a real estate professional. This is the value of our brand. And these are the kinds of things we do in your community. But an agent talks about, this is who I am. These are the kinds of customers that I provide value to. And, this is what I feel about being able to personally represent you at a negotiation table. And I really think that's the difference.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And, we do a lot of content development, for brokerages, whether it's, direct to consumer, with, market trends and community news and things like that. As well as, recruitment type material. And it's interesting because when we do recruitment, though, then we're personalizing the broker and creating who am I as a broker? What is the culture and community like inside of my organization? But then with agent to consumer, you're right. It's 100%. Our goal is, whether we're creating an email campaign or a social reach campaign or text campaign, is, how do we help that agent connect with that consumer and create a conversation offline?
Yeah.
Right? How do we connect those two together, get them together, whether it's, to look at listing presentations, to even have a cup of coffee just to get to know each other and explore, a needs analysis or whatever the case is. And I think that's important when people are looking at building their business plan and putting together their marketing strategies, right? Go back to that question. Why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I creating and sharing content? And, it's because I am trying to create connection and communication and take conversations offline.
Yeah. And for people that are listening right now who are still feeling like maybe business planning is a little scary, I want to go kind of granular on where I think the very first step is. For me, the very first step is do a stop, start, continue. And that's really where you sit down and go, what are all the things I need to stop doing next year in order to achieve my goals? What are the things that I need to start doing that are going to help me achieve my goals? And what should I continue that's working? And I think if you sit down and you do that as the very first of sort of that workbook or an exercise in your business, things are going to become really clear really quickly. Gosh, there's things that I'm not doing that are going to bring me business, that are going to help me reach these goals, the small things, the big things. I'm not doing those, and I really need to start. And gosh, there's some things that I should stop doing because they're not leading me to my goals. And they're keeping me from my ideal day or from reaching my time blocking commitments with myself. And so I need to stop those. And then there are some things where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, this stuff is really working and I'm killing it in these areas. So I need to make sure I continue doing that. And that can be a really simple, basic exercise to start with when you start your business planning, because then stuff really becomes clear in terms of, am I reaching out to my people on a regular basis or not? Am I staying in touch with my past clients or not? And that's, it's a great granular place to start.
I'd like to, and I know we're starting to get a little tight on time. I can't believe how fast this hour has gone. Valerie, I think you and I could just sit here and keep talking all day. I don't know if people would stay on with us all day. They could go get some lunch, come back, join us. I'd like to also address with when you're doing your business planning for 2018, a big thing to me is mentorship. Even in my business, I mean, I work in software technology, but, I have a handful of business mentors that I use to bounce ideas off of. I talk to them about, the challenges that we have as a technology company, our thoughts on how we're going to overcome them. I even run, I mean, it's just amazing to have mentors. And I think in the real estate space, particularly like for newer agents who have so much to learn and experience in the space, I think you cannot put enough value on seeking out mentors, whether they're, whether it's your broker or other agents in your office, whether it's other people in your community. But there's so many amazing people out there that are really willing to share their experiences and bounce, questions with you and challenge you and encourage you to grow.
Agreed. And the first step to finding those is to put up your hand and ask. You'd be amazed at how awesome it is to just reach out to somebody and say, you know what, like, I've been watching you. I think you're really killing it in this area, this particular thing. You do really well. Could I maybe meet with you on a quarterly basis? And could you hold me accountable on a couple of things? Could I tell you what my goal is for 2018 in that regard? So, maybe it's you see somebody and they do an amazing job of loving their past clients. So maybe reach out to them and say, look, I just really admire the way you do this. And that's one of my goals for next year is to do better at that. Could you hold me accountable? Could you say to me on a regular basis, hey, how's that going? Could you be my, my accountability partner in that regard? Now, you may have somebody that's, douchey and is like, no, not my problem. But most of the time, people are going to say, yeah, I would love to. Like, I remember when that was a struggle for me, or it comes naturally and I'd love to share. Finding somebody that you could just say, look, I'm off track and I need somebody to push me back on track. It's surprisingly easy if you actually go out and look for it.
Yeah, I always say it never hurts to ask, because the worst somebody will say is no.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's interesting. We've had a couple of people, Michael and Keith have both sent messages in saying that priorities or goals that they have for 2018 are creating videos. So Michael says he's looking to, his number one priority for 2018 is to develop community videos. And Keith says that I like what he's saying here. He's working on creating videos that allow people to see him as a resource. And he actually created a series called Out and About with Luke, which is his next home mascot. And it's just showing people how he can help them in positioning himself as a resource, covering construction topics of working with lenders, home warranty topics. Also, it's very consumer focused videos, but not just being a salesman, but serving as a resource. That is fantastic.
I love it. And those are such good touch points. And also kind of ties into the other question we just got from Florica, who said they feel bad for not keeping in touch with past clients, and how can we reach out to them and not feel bad? Just be honest. Reach out, maybe do a personal video message. Hey, Tom and Mary, we haven't talked in a while. I feel terrible about that. Life gets so busy, and I know that probably it's busy for you and the kids. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you, and if there's ever anything I can do to help, if there's ever any information that I can provide to you, please feel free to give me a call. I mean, it's just that simple. It's just being real. It's the same thing that you would say, Florica, if you ran into those people in the grocery store. Hey, how are you? How are things? And I've been thinking about you. I think sometimes we overthink it. We overthink business planning. We overthink marketing communication because we think it has to be this big fancy thing, but really it's not, guys. It's just being human. It's just saying, like, I need to set aside time to do the things that I know are going to bring me money, and I need to set aside time for people because they're the most important part of my business. And then how do I make those people feel cared about? It's really not rocket science.
It isn't. And with social media, it's so easy. And Florica, I'll actually share a story with you. So I had a business colleague that, I've worked with off and on, different projects over the years. And he had posted something on Facebook the other day. And it's funny because Facebook kind of like, if you don't engage with people for a while, they have a tendency to not show up in your feeds.
Right.
But what I noticed was that we've been doing this 12 days of giving at our company. And I've been every day posting a video announcing a winner. And I noticed that he was had been, liking those posts. And so all of a sudden his feed kind of, showed up in my feed. So it kind of re-engaged us. And I just took a moment and I typed him a personal message and I was like, hey, Chris, I haven't talked to you in about a year. How are things going at the new company you're with? I'd love to connect with you and just touch base and see if I can help you or vice versa, and he and I actually have a call scheduled this Friday to discuss that because he actually was like, you know what, I actually do have something I want to talk to you about. Let's connect. And it really was. And it was really me just being personal and saying, man, I haven't talked to you in a while. How are things going? And the next thing I know, it literally is, becoming a business opportunity for us. Oh, there he is right there. I guess he's on this. There you go, Chris. I know. I'm looking forward to connecting with you.
That's right. And it's so true. It's just about being human and finding ways to be human with our customers because our customers are human too. And I think the same is true of our business planning, is not to overthink it, not to get too crazy, but to remember that the focus is always on people. If the only goal that we set for ourselves in 2018 was to talk to more people, think of the strategies that we could put in place to do that. What could we do on a daily basis to talk to more people? What could we do on a weekly basis to talk to more people? And whether that's talking to people through social media or phone calls or videos, all of it, if the focus comes back to our why, right? How full circle is that? If our why is to talk to more people so that we can say, look, I'm here to help. It's an amazing why to have.
That's awesome. So I know we only have a few minutes left, and we definitely want to encourage any questions that people have. Melissa, I'm going to ask you to flip to the next screen on the slide deck. This is Valerie and my contact information. Valerie, if you do not follow her on Instagram or Facebook, I highly recommend picking her up. She is very entertaining, and she's actually the one that inspired me to get on Facebook Live videos and showed me how easy it really was. And then also check out her website. There's a lot of great resources there. And like I said, after this, we're going to send everybody an email with some takeaways. We're going to make the video available, and then that fabulous workbook that Valerie holds close to her heart, and she is allowing us to share it with everyone. And it is wonderful, and you can just work through it page by page, and it's really great. With me, you can follow me personally. I think I'm fairly engaging online as well. And you can also check out our company. So you have both my personal information and then our eMerge information there as well. And like I said, we're doing a 12 days of giving right now. And so you can come in. Actually, if you attended this webinar, you're automatically registered. But we are giving away a ton of just really, really fantastic business books. We've got some eMerge giveaways that we've been doing as well. And so come in, connect with us socially, register for Valerie's and my next two webinars. Our next one is January 9th. And when we send that follow-up email, actually, Melissa, if you can flip to the next screen, we have the URL where people can go to easyemerge.com/webinars. So you can see an outline of Valerie and our next two webinars, get registered for those, as well as be able to access all of this awesome content that's available for you. And I know, Valerie, next time I know we're going to be doing a lot of focus on talking about content. What kind of content should we be sharing? That's a huge thing in terms of, marketing yourself. And so we're going to be really digging into that, like looking at, okay, what is the life cycle of, my leads, these relationships, and what kind of content? That question that Aaron asked, what is the frequency of how I should be touching these different communication groups? And so we're going to be just really, really digging into that and looking at a lot of really great content and statistics.
And
so
we have some questions that are coming in that I think we're going to cover pretty in detail in the next session as well, about what do I say to people when I reach out to them that are in my database? I have a sphere. How often do I send them out? What do I say in that letter? We're going to talk a lot about that. I think we're going to cover a ton of that content in the next session. But I think if we were to sort of ballpark it and give them a teaser of what next session is going to be, talk to people in your marketing the way you would talk to them in real life. So if you're struggling with what to say to reach out, now is a great time of year to reach out. It's a feel good time of year. So reach out and say, hey, I just wanted to say hi and let you know what I'm doing right now and let you know what I'm up to. And, I think those are great places to start. But, the workbook that you're going to be getting from this is going to, like we said, it's going to walk you through every single step of not just setting aside money for your marketing, but figuring out where you're spending your time. It's got some really good worksheets on how to figure out where your money comes from and where it's going. So that's going to be awesome. And, you can always reach out to one of us if you have other questions beyond this webinar too.
Oh, yeah. I would love to talk to every single one of you. And if you're interested in trying out eMerge, we have a free trial. Go in, register for this free trial. You can actually work with one of our coaches. And so some of these different, challenges we've talked about are, Fazal, how do I reconnect with, my database that I haven't communicated with in a year? That is exactly what we do. We help you develop strategies to do exactly that. And then to understand out of that database, are there immediate opportunities? And then how can I create long-term nurture strategies? So Valerie and I are both here. Please reach out to us, connect with us socially. Register for our next webinars because Fazal and Amy, your questions, I absolutely love that she's sending out referral cards. So we're going to talk about that. That is an amazing way to reconnect. And so we'll be digging into topics like that this next time.
Yep.
And oh man, we've got a lot of stuff coming in. Yeah. So Valerie's workbook, if you look on the screen right now, the easyemerge.com/webinars, we will have that available. I'm not sure if we'll have it uploaded by this afternoon. We'll try to get it this afternoon, but we're trying to get the video formatted and uploaded as well. As soon as we have the workbook and the video on the website, on that webpage, we will send out an email to everybody that attended today's webinar with a link to it, and you can go in and download everything. So, wow. Well, Valerie, this has been really fun.
The time flies when you're having fun.
It really, really does. And like I said, I think that we could have a lot of these conversations and just have them go all day long. But I'd really love to thank, everyone that joined us today. I hope you have some good takeaways. I know that you're going to love working through Valerie's workbook. Connect with her directly on that. Connect with me directly on anything in terms of eMerge or nurturing campaigns for your sphere of influence. And remember, that sphere of influence is golden for you. 81% of transactions statistically come from your sphere of influence. So make sure in your 2018 business planning that you are accounting for past clients, your active buyers and sellers, and then long-term nurture strategies for all of the people that are in your sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Any closing statement from you, Valerie?
No, just again, absolutely reach out to me. I'd love to help with any questions anybody has on the workbook or otherwise. The most important thing is that you sit down and actually do spend some time on planning. If you don't have goals and if you don't have strategies to get there, you won't. So whether you follow a workbook or you just sit down and write your goals out for next year and come up with at least 3 strategies to help you achieve those goals, you'll be far and away ahead of most of your competitors.
Well, that is a fantastic takeaway. Valerie, thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll look forward to seeing every single one of you at our next webinar. I believe it's January 9th.
That's right. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, happy holidays, happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.